What's up, everybody? Welcome to Mongols. This is our prediction show where we are going to break down what we think what might happen when Hartford Athletic travel to Highmark Stadium to take on the Pittsburgh Riverhounds this weekend. I am Mike. Joining me for this one is Mondo. Mondo, how's it going, man?
Good. How are you? I hope this week hasn't been too rough.
No. All good. I'm back in the swing of sort of talking to multiple people. I think last week we weren't able to talk with somebody from Oakland and it felt like there was a gap. So to be able to talk to Pesh and then Robbie and now to be able to talk to you is a lot of fun. The Hounds post the 5-0 win against Oakland collected a bunch of awards. Just wanted to sort of get your thoughts on that. So Etu was named USL Player of the Week. Suber and Sample were on Team of the Week. Mertz was named to the bench. Do you think USL got that right?
For the most part, I'll say sure. I didn't pay too much attention to the results around the league. Interesting that Mertz is on the bench and Sample made it. That's a little, I don't know. I mean, Sample was involved in a lot of the build-up play, but I would say so is Mertz. So it's hard to pick from those two. Suber, I mean, anytime a defender scores, they make it, right? Like that's kind of that's
scores and clean sheet. So
yeah, like he hit the, he checked all the boxes that he possibly could. And actually, like big props to Suber. I think he needed a win. I think this week in more ways than one. So
yeah, agreed. Talk to Robbie a little bit about that. We'll get to that in a second. So just to sort of recap what we know about Hartford and sort of what we know about the Hounds heading into this conversation, we did talk to our buddy Pesh from the Bonanza, which is the supporters group from Hartford on our Insider show. So if you want all the details, make sure you go check that out. One of the things to touch on is that Hartford were in a similar situation to us until last week, where since we last played them and they beat us 2-0, they had not scored either until they played the Battery this past weekend, and they scored twice in a 2-2 draw. They have lost all of their games except for that draw with the Battery, but all of those losses, or even that draw, have been against A, really tough teams, and B, have all been in like the 90th minute. They've given up a last-second goal to lose or to draw. And when I say good teams, I'm talking Louisville, Tampa, Sacramento, Charleston. Like those are all teams that you always expect to be near the top of the table. The one interesting thing for them playing us is that also in the past 4 games, they've had 2 red cards, including one that will keep their starting keeper, Ribeiro, from playing this weekend. So they will not have their starting keeper because of a red card that he picked up in the Battery game. So that could impact how we ultimately predict how we see things going this weekend. And then also talk to Robbie Mertz for our pregame and episode. It's always a pleasure to talk to him. He mentioned how the team isn't getting too high after the win against Oakland, almost saying that if they were too high, he was there to smack them around a little bit and keep them in check, which was good. And he also mentioned, I had asked him specifically that it felt almost more like he was playing like a number 10 role in the game against Oakland. And he confirmed that was a change that they had made, and he actually likes playing in that position. It will be interesting to sort of see if we continue doing that moving forward. So I guess before we jump into thoughts on the game, anything there that I just mentioned, Mondo, that sort of jumped out to you or you have thoughts on?
All of those top teams are 1 through 3 of the East and the West. So not only are they historic performers, which I think this year has been a big statement to historic performers, or maybe not as up there as looking at New Mexico leading the West somehow. But yeah, no, they're like very solid teams. Kind of had a similar Hounds run.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think again, if you don't include the game 2 weeks ago where we literally lost with the last kick in the game.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh is a very good defensively solid team. And I think we saw a bit of that in Hartford when we played them.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that have similar issues where they're just dropping late goals and losing to late goals, that adds up to, what we saw the first time around.
Yeah. I think it's really easy for me to look at this game this weekend and go, it's Hartford. They're below us in the table. They haven't won since they beat us. We just sort of blew up for 5-0 against a really good Oakland team. This should be a cakewalk. But when I look at the teams that they've lost to, and you look at that they've lost like 1-0, literally it's been 1-0 by giving up a goal in the 90th minute in those games. It's like they're hanging with these really good teams. So I don't think, like, on paper, it's easy to just say like disregard them, but I don't think you can do that. I think you really got to be careful here.
No, I think Hartford is unlucky not to have an additional 3 or 4 points.
Yeah.
So very similar situation to the Hounds. Unlucky to not be in that in a playoff spot right now, I think. And the two specific teams that I'm referring to, if you're curious, that I think would drop out would be Loudoun and Rhode Island. Yeah. So, and I would have Pittsburgh and Hartford 7 and 8. Literally just a straight swap, basically. So based on that, they're just as unlucky as we are. Their players are going to be just as hungry to flip the script as we are. They have the confidence of a 2-0 home win. Fort Highmark has only started being rebuilt, which so there's a lot in the air, I think, at this game.
Yeah,
of two similar teams too.
Yeah. Was there anything from the Robbie conversation that sort of stuck with you?
Other than the off team, and by off team I mean the jersey stuff. I like this. I like him being that number 10 because when it shows when he's more comfortable.
Yeah.
I think we need to call. I mean, I think I hinted at this last time. We need to call an orthopedic surgeon for all of the Oakland Roots because he broke everybody's Danny Griffin, I think, has the only other similar play that we've seen this season where he essentially danced through an entire team to score, and then we have Mertz doing the same thing here. So I like him being confident. I like him expressing himself because it shows that maybe this is enough to earn him that number 10 role fully and actually use a number 10 role in our line in our system, because we looked not just dangerous but deadly. I'm gonna change that from dangerous to deadly.
I like that
with him in that role.
Yeah,
because he's able to coordinate. I've seen more than what he said in the show. I think he's had to step into a more leadership. It felt like a little bit of subtext when you were talking to him, but he's had to step into a more leadership role, especially with Danny out, because the players are looking to him as one of the more experienced players out there.
Yeah.
And he is filling in that role very well, I think.
Yeah. I always like talking to him because I know he's always going to downplay whatever it is that he's doing. Mm-hmm. So he's like, I thought I really didn't do that much better. I'm like, come on, man. Like we all saw what happened. Like you did fine. But it was interesting to sort of hear the insight of him saying, like, when he's out wide, he feels like he has more defensive responsibilities and he needs to sort of occupy that space out there, whereas when he is more central, he can sort of float in between the lines and find the pockets, and it seems to play to his strengths better. So it'll be interesting to sort of see what we do this week.
Oh yeah, and it most certainly messes with defenders. I think defenders are used to seeing him out there on they don't expect to have another player forcing that midfield issue or the center of the field issue, I should say. And I like having that extra little component in there.
Yeah. I think part of the reason why he was able to float a little bit more too was because it felt like we had our wingbacks pushed up higher. Mm-hmm. And so when you had Blackstock sort of occupying that space, then that meant that Robbie didn't have to worry about being there as much and he could sort of tuck inside.
Yeah. So. And I think Sample and Walty had a really nice defensive mid pivot where they even swung out to the wings to fill in that role. Yeah. Like they were covering defensive responsibilities, not just in the midfield area, but they were covering out on the wings. And I think that's that's a new development that I like. I really like that because that allows Blackstock, that allows that two to get up there and
Yeah.
know that they have cover.
Yeah. Yeah. Get up there and stay up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, talking specifically about this game, one of the things that Robbie mentioned was, last time that we did play was in Hartford and we lost 2-0. This was a really tough game for the guys, sort of in that drought, specifically going to Hartford, specifically losing 2-0. So you have to imagine that there's some bulletin board material that's going on in the locker room right now, knowing that Hartford's coming back. We're feeling good. Like, let's go out and do something about it. We are getting healthier as a team. Griffin was in training this week. Hogan was back in training last week, so we might see him fully back this week. No official confirmation from the team, so we don't actually know for sure. But if pictures, could tell 1,000 words, that's kind of what we're seeing. I'm curious, with all of that and with all of the success from this last game, do you change anything in terms of the lineup this week?
I wouldn't want to risk Danny too early because a knee injury can turn into a season, and sometimes, depending on time it happens, it can turn into a multi-season injury. We saw that with Sam Kerr, not in Pittsburgh, but missing the World Cup, missing almost a whole year of playtime from a knee injury that was seemingly innocuous at first and turned into something much, much worse. And so for that reason, I'd rather keep him back a game, or use him as a sub later in this game.
Yeah.
That's as far as Hogan. I'm worried about all of our defenders with the number of hits they take. I mean, I know Biasi's a brick wall. I don't think I would take out. I mean, Suber's had amazing performances. Can't really take him out. Osumanu's been solid. I think he's maybe the one that would be most considered to be taken out. But you can't take out Biasi unless he gets hurt either, because he's a brick wall. Yeah. So I think the issue you run into is like Hogan's now fighting a little bit of an uphill battle to get back in. And he did the same thing happened to him last year, if I'm not mistaken. He was in, he got an injury, and then he had to fight, and he just never regained his spot. So I'm a little worried that happens again, because he is really talented, and he's, I think, outside of our outfield players, he's the tallest player, I think.
Yeah. But so, I think what you're talking about is probably a good thing, though, right? Because at the beginning of the season, we were like, who are our center backs? We were playing Danny Griffin. We don't think we have enough center backs. And to sort of get to this point in the season where we're now at the halfway point and you have guys battling for spots.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I want my hard choice to be, man, which of these two really good players go in? That is the best kind of hard decision.
Yeah. I mean, we're seeing the same thing in the midfield too, right? I mean, you just sort of mentioned Walty and Sample and Mertz. That leaves Griffin and Kenny on the bench. And those are two guys that early on you would not expect to say they're going to start on the bench.
Are going to be on the bench, yes.
Yeah.
I
mean,
mean,
it's a good problem to have.
I think at this point in Kenny's career, I think whether or not we expected to see him more on the bench, I think he's expecting to see himself more on the bench.
Yeah.
And I mean, we might be holding on to Kenny pretty hard, but I think like that's just the way of things, right? So Kenny not being out there. That being said, as we saw last game, Kenny makes a lot of impact as a sub, and I don't think that's a bad position for him to be in. And that could be a really good position for him the rest of the season, is an impact sub.
Yeah.
So that at least solves half our hard problem. The other, but yeah, I love being spoiled for choice. I think the biggest question is going to be who our forwards are, because that's between the five forwards. Who do we actually have out there? Yeah. And I would like to see EJ again. I don't know if I'm sold on Kizza. I would like to see EJ again. And I think either Musa or Sterling. Because I'm just curious to see what would happen. I think the experiment for the rest of the season is going to be our forwards until one of them gets hot. As soon as one of them gets hot, it's going to be they're going to nail it down. That's going to be the solid start, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about, I don't know. I think regardless of what we say, it feels like Kiss is going to start because for whatever reason, Bob just feels like Kiss is going to start. I think that EJ has probably played his way into that starting position, but I'd have to imagine that somebody like Musa is itching to get in there as well. I mean, not to say that Sterling isn't, but it will be interesting. We scored 5 goals last week, and none of them came from the foot of a forward. The forwards were involved, but they weren't the ones to score. So who's going to be sort of the first forward to score after this drought? That will be interesting as well. But I do think from what we talked about last week, EJ being an overall pest to the defensive line and sort of holding up the ball, it feels like it should be his position just based on what we've seen from everybody else over the course of the season thus far. Moose has only been here for really a few games, so we still don't really know what we have there yet. But
I would say both Musa and Sterling are still unknown quantities, just because we know what they're capable of.
Mm-hmm.
The reason they're here is because of what they're capable of. It's just a question of, will they find that here? Will they break out here? Or does this just not work for them?
Right.
And
yeah,
I mean, time will tell, I guess. Like we can't force that. That's as much as I want to,
Right. Yeah, no, agreed. So just sort of the overalls about the game. It is going to be a whiteout. I'm wearing my whiteout hat, which I am digging. So if you're going to the game, make sure that you're wearing white. They also mentioned doing the whole scarves up thing again. So if you have a scarf, take a scarf. For those who are not going, it will be on ESPN2, which is great. $1 beers from 5:30 to 7:30 because the game doesn't start until 8. So it is a later starting game than usual. So you have a little bit more time in the parking lot for some pre-gaming. Did mention that they're unveiling their third jerseys at the game. I did talk to Robbie a little bit about that. He gave us a little bit of a hint of what we might see, but I'm not going to say anything else here. If you want to know anything in advance, go listen to that pre-gaming episode with him because he does reveal some tidbits about what we could be expecting here. Mondo, give me a score prediction. How do you think this thing shakes out?
Ooh. Man. This is just as tough now as when I do it with Amo every game. I'm gonna go with my solid 2-1. And I'm gonna say 2-1 to the Hounds because I think we found our shooting boots. I don't think that's going anytime soon. But I also think Hartford found their shooting boots last game, and so it's gonna be tough to keep them down. What's more likely is 1-0 to the Hounds, yeah. I think. It's tough for me to give Hartford a goal based on the defense I've seen from the Hounds in the last 2 games.
Yeah. Agreed. I'm gonna our buddy Pesh in Hartford actually predicted a 2-0 Hounds win. And to be fair, he did call the game right in Hartford. He said a 2-0 Hartford win. So good on him. I'm going to go a little bit further. I'm going to say a 3-0 Hounds win. And I think it could actually be more simply because their starting keeper's out on a red. So we're getting a backup keeper. And I have no idea whether or not they rotate keepers the way the Hounds do. So this guy could be completely cold that's going into net. 2, one of the things that Pesh mentioned as well is that Hartford has all season sort of had a mentality issue where their bench is constantly getting carted and they're constantly making stupid mistakes that's leading them to get into trouble. And I think if we get a goal or 2 in, that it starts to get into their heads and they might lose it. And then we just have the chance to sort of open the floodgates again. So I'll say 3-0. And if we get more, like, holy crap, that would be fantastic. It sounds like if we get, I can't remember what the number is, but after 2 games, we're already at the point where we could be getting close to getting out of negative goal differential, which is insane considering that we went so many games without a goal. But great. I mean, we talked a little bit about how Lilly was asked if this last game was a turning point in the season, and he said the only way to know is we get to the end of the season and see what happens next. So after what we saw, at least the past few games, after we saw that we can put 5 up against Oakland, then I'm just going to sort of have to trust and say that I think the Hounds are going to do it again this weekend. So,
yeah, I definitely see the Hounds. Just peeking at the USL's stats, which it's the USL website. It looks like they do have Greg Monroe has 2 appearances. Walters has 6. Ribeiro has 11. So they're out there. I think they have a very similar keeper distribution as we do.
So it might not be awful for them.
It might not be awful. And it looks like, I mean, Walter's got a save percentage of 62 and Greg has a save success of 50. So it sounds like if we just keep getting shots on goal, they should go in.
It should go in. Yeah. Makes sense.
But we've also been saying that all season. So
True. Well, that is what we think. Let us know what you think. Mondo, any sort of closing thoughts before the game this weekend?
No, I think this is going to be good. I'm
think
excited. So. I'm still riding the high from last week. Even if we don't take points away here, I'll probably still ride the same high. Agreed. A 5-0 win is a hard high to get down from.
We're going to have to go a few games of not doing well to put this one behind us for sure.
Oh yeah. And we've got a strong base, and I think that's the biggest thing that we could ask for. So we have a strong base to go from.
Agreed. Thanks everybody for watching and listening. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're getting this, and stay tuned because we will bring you more Hounds content very, very soon.
This is the way.